Is it Malik Davis season or is it Malik Davis trap season? I don't know yet. Do you guys know? I haven't figured that out. We'll have to look at projected ownership. We got the news that Jadon Blue is out for tonight. Kind of a surprise, not a huge surprise based on some of the recent coach speak coming out about Jadon Blue. I was actually going to come in here and say I've developed some interest in Malik Davis prior to the news that Jadon Blue is out. Now, obviously, everybody's going to have some interest in Malik Davis. I assume he's going to get steamed, but we'll have to see if he actually does get steamed. Actually, great note from Brandon here. Could be Kavonte Turpin time. Maybe Kavonte Turpin picks up a couple carries with Jadon Blue out. We'll talk about all of the angles again, going position by position, starting with quarterback and running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, kickers. I'll be making my lineups for DraftKings Showdown using Run the Sims on this video. I don't think I'm going to bother running the Sims yet because, again, things are going to change with Jadon Blue out. I don't know how much ownership to expect for Malik Davis. He is, I believe, min priced. Let me double check that. Yeah, he's $200. So now the backup running back being $200 actually probably makes a difference, I would guess, with just two running backs there and the backup being 200. You would think that more people are going to get to Malik Davis. Maybe even then we're going to get to Jadon Blue, but we'll talk about that once we get to running backs. Again, I'm not going to run the Sims just yet. Got to give Run the Sims some time to update their stuff for the inactive news. Don't think we got anything else. Kyler is inactive, so if anybody was thinking about playing the angle of maybe Kyler will have a role, you don't have to think about that angle anymore. He is not playing tonight. So let's get into it. But before I get started, please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, always appreciated. And of course, if you're not signed up for Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 10% off your first payment on any Run the Sims product. Let's get into it though, starting with quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett, just 8,600, really nice price tag on Jacoby Brissett. I think I want to play a lot. He's projected, as you see here, for 60% flex ownership, 16% captain ownership. I really don't have a huge issue with either of those numbers. I would guess I come in underweight relative to the 76% he's getting here. But at 8,600, like the price is pretty nice for a starting quarterback in what is one of the best matchups you can have as a quarterback. The second best matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. So things look great for Jacoby Brissett. The price tag is right. The matchup is right. And he's been playing pretty well. They've also been throwing the ball quite a bit with Jacoby Brissett. Actually, let me pull up my article here. In the 2 games that Jacoby Brissett has started for the Cardinals, they rank 7th in terms of pass rate over expectation. So everything looks great. I think he should be in some of your lineups, a lot of your lineups potentially. Yeah, Zell, we're trying to figure that out. I don't know. I'm going to wait for ownership projection updates. I don't think that he's going to be like extreme chalk, but I am not the best at gauging it. That's why I outsource, kind of leave projected ownership to the sites for the most part and use theirs to gauge how much we expect and how much I'm going to like a play based on their projected ownership. I do think this is one where it's going to be tougher for sites to, figure out, because there will be some people who will still have Jadon Blue in their lineups who listen to shows this morning. They maybe listen to me and Adam talking about Jadon Blue and they put him in their lineup, and they're not going to listen to anything now. They're out doing stuff, and there will be probably some Jadon Blue in people's lineups. Fortunately for the rest of us who are not going to have him. So I would guess because some people do build early, they maybe won't swap directly down. That probably he's not going to get super steamed, but you never really know with these late additions or late playable late players. So Jacoby Brissett, I think it looks like a relatively strong quarterback option. If you do play Jacoby Brissett in your lineup, I would have him stacked up regardless of where you have him in your lineup. I do think you can theoretically play him at captain just single stacked is maybe more viable than quarterbacks often are, just because he is 8,600. And we have actually Marvin Harrison only 8,400 also. Trey McBride 9,000. I'm maybe taking it back. I was thinking that Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride were significantly more expensive, and that is not the case. Still, maybe possibly could play him single stack just because he is cheap enough. But typically, I'm going to want him, if you have him a captain, stacked with multiple pass catchers. On the other side, Dak Prescott, 10,400, projected for 53% flex ownership, 21% captain ownership. Dak has just been a really strong fantasy asset this year. Cowboys rank 11th in terms of pass rate over expectation. Cardinals defense has allowed the 13th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. So a slightly negative, but essentially a neutral matchup for Dak Prescott, and he has been basically matchup proof. We saw him put up a huge game against the Packers, who were considered like the best defense in the NFL at the time. He's put up some nice fantasy scores in some not so great matchups. So I'm not super concerned about the matchup for Dak Prescott. I suspect I will be close to where the field is at 74% projected ownership. Again, I'll run the sims later. I think I'd be okay with these numbers being about where I'm at with Dak Prescott. Don't think I want to get to that much more than this because there are a number of pretty good pay up options on this slate, but I would be maybe okay getting to about these numbers. 53% flex, 21% captain. Similar to Jacoby Brissett, I would want to have Dak Prescott stacked up regardless of where I have him in my lineup, just not much of a running quarterback, and multi-stacked typically if I have him in the captain spot. All right. That's right, Peppertoni. There's my advertisement. Some will have dead blue lineups. The rest of us watch the Flaniverse, and like the video. Like the video when you're watching the stream. Okay, this is a good note from JBW. I will adjust those before I run it. So let me put those in right now. Thank you for this, JB. 44.5 and 41.8. Just make sure I get these right in here. Some technical difficulties here, but solved that easily. 41.8, 44.5. We're good. Okay. At running back, so we will start with the Cardinal side of things. Let me move the sidebar down. It's interesting. Unstanding says, I was reading something that said this is a bad matchup for the offensive line for Dallas and that Williams is a bad play against this interior. I've been looking for a reason to fade Williams. So maybe that's true. Maybe that's something we can lean in on. 3.3 yards per carry in their most recent game. I mentioned it earlier that Javonte like kind of faded down the stretch last year. I'm not like leaning into that as like, yeah, of course he's going to fade down the stretch again. I think that was his first year back after an injury. So like, doesn't mean it's going to happen this week again, but looking for reasons to spend up elsewhere. Yeah, we'll talk about Lamb versus Prescott later, but yeah, absolutely you can get outscored by Lamb. Would not even be that difficult for CeeDee Lamb to outscore Dak Prescott because of the scoring dynamics on these slates. We'll talk about that when we get to wide receiver, but running back, starting with the Arizona side, we have Bam Knight is the presumptive starter here, and then Michael Carter 4,400, Imari DiMercado is 3,000. Okay, these no, I think these actually are the same ownership numbers that we were using earlier. So Bam Knight, again, 35% flex, 8% captain. Let me pull up the numbers for how they've been used the past few weeks. And I think the best sample size we have is the past couple, because we had the one game 3 games ago where it was Michael Carter got the start. And then we've had since then 2 games where it's been Bam getting Zonovan getting the start. So I think the best sample we have is these past 2 games. You could do the past 3 because those are the 3 without Trey Benson. But I'm just going to do week 6 and 7 as the most recent sample here because it kind of made a changing of the guard in Arizona. So over the past 2 weeks, Zonovan Bam Knight has gotten 25 carries, 6 targets on 26.9% route participation. Actually, it was even better last game. It was 14 carries and 4 targets, the most recent game for Zonovan Knight. I want to read the coach speak here on these 3 because I think it's pretty interesting. And I talked about it earlier, but I have a lot of interest in the Cardinals running backs. It's just a fantastic spot for running backs against this Dallas defense. And I think people might be a little bit scared off of playing them because of the sort of uncertainty. And I might just lean into it. But as you can see here, it's not just like the best spot for a running back over the past 5 weeks. It's the best spot outside of Cincinnati, like by kind of a wide margin. It's only, 1.6 points better over the past 5 weeks than the matchup with Cincinnati, which, I mean, if you watch yesterday's game, if you watch at all, Cincinnati just gives up fantasy points to running backs. Dallas even better over the past 5 weeks. And then kind of a gap down to Atlanta, New York, and all these other defenses. Just been really great spot for running backs against Dallas. So then I think, okay, who can I play against Dallas of these running backs? And Zonovan Knight again is going to get the ownership. He's only 7,000, so like the price is pretty nice for Bam Knight at $7,000. If we think he can get like he did the last game, 14 carries, four targets, that goes a long way against this Dallas defense. So I actually really like him as a captain play. Now here we have him at 35% flex, 8% captain ownership. I want to compare that to elsewhere. Oh, and I got to reset this stuff. Okay, good. They have their projections updated here. Let me refresh. Okay, so they do have Zonovan Knight at 7.5% projected captain ownership. So it looks like maybe the ownerships have come. Oh, but only 20% flex ownership. So about the same captain, but much lower flex ownership. So Zonovan Knight, it kind of depends on where the ownership does come in. I think I might change up the ownership, bring it down a little bit from where it is here. But I think that he would be a strong play at if he gets 20% flex ownership. At 35, I think it's like, okay, I'd be fine playing him if these are the ownership numbers, 35 and 8, just because it's such a strong matchup. He's been playing pretty well as the lead back, and he's only 7,000. So I think that he's a totally fine defensible play at these ownership numbers. This is about where I'd like to be. So then if the field does come in significantly under, like I'm taking an overweight approach, I'd like to be there. But I don't think I want to have that much more than this. I think, 8% captain looks great for Bam Knight, but it's not like a place where I want to be playing 30% because the field is at 8%. Like if the field gets to 8%, I think that's about efficient. I think these are about efficient numbers on Bam Knight. Then you've got Michael Carter, 4,400 projected for 22% flex ownership, 2% captain ownership. And now, since I'm talking about the backup running backs, let me bring up the coach speak. Let me read off the coach speak index because I do think it's pretty interesting coach speak on these Cardinals running backs. And I think like I'll just read off the most recent quote is I think the most interesting. So on the first, so just 2 days ago, head coach Jonathan Gannon said on Bam Knight, Amari DiMercato, and Michael Carter, he said, I feel good about playing all three of those guys on first, second, and third down. And then on whether Gannon views Knight as the starter until Trey Benson returns, he said, I guess, yeah, because he'll be the first one that goes out. But all three of them, to me, have their own role. We'll see who's running it well, and that guy will probably honestly get a little more touches. I like our plan going into the game, but you've got to be able to adapt in game by what your eyes see too. So I like Zonovan Knight because the coach says that he's going to be getting the start, that he's going to be the first one out there getting the first carries, and that it's going to be kind of a who's running the best situation. They're going to keep playing that guy. And I think in this matchup with the Cowboys, most likely Zonovan Knight is going to be running well. So they're not going to have a reason to make a change. But at the same time, it does sound like they plan to use all three of the running backs. So if Zonovan Knight struggles like even a little bit, and then Michael Carter comes in and is running really well, I think they really I sort of believe him that it is a hot hand approach, and it's just going to be whoever is running the best. So I like Zonovan Knight as the one who's probably going to the first carries, like the best, the most likely to get 18, 20 touches. I think Zonovan Knight is the one most likely to get that number of carries. But with that said, it could just end up being a pretty big committee here. And Michael Carter at 4,400 in this matchup with the Cowboys defense would look great. He's projected for, again, 22% flex, 2% captain ownership. That's similar to what I'm seeing elsewhere. I'm fine with those numbers on Michael Carter. Again, like he could take over and get 14 touches in this game, in which case you'd love him at 4,400 if he gets 14 touches. So I'm kind of taking an overweight approach, I think, I'm going to be even with the field if the field comes in here, or I'd like to be about even with the field if this is where the field comes in on Bam Knight. I guess I'd like to be about even with the field, maybe slightly overweight to this, 24% total projected ownership on Michael Carter. But then I really like Amari DiMercato. And I want to be clear that this is not like a super high confidence bet on Amari DiMercato. It's just I don't think the ownership is going to get higher than it is being projected for. Like I'd be kind of surprised if we see Imari DiMercado for double digit ownership. He's being projected everywhere I've looked for, 3 to 5% ownership. Here, I guess I'll pull up RG since I'm talking about it. Which, by the way, you can get 10% or $10 off at RG using the link in the description. Also, they haven't projected for 2% ownership. I've seen anywhere from 2 to 5% on Imari DiMercado, and I don't think that that's wrong. There are some cases where I'm like, yeah, he's listed for really low ownership. I think everybody's going to be talking about him, and he's going to end up getting steamed. I'd be kind of surprised if Imari DiMercado does get steamed, just because everybody watched the long touchdown and drop the ball before going into the end zone. We saw him, get hit by his coach, go directly into the doghouse. And so I think everybody's kind of like, all right, he's in the doghouse. He's just done for. And that was kind of my expectation at the time, was that he was going to be cut by the team. But the team didn't cut him. They've kept him around. And I think the fact that they've kept him around makes me think most likely he is going to have a role. He got hurt in week 6 in the first half after just playing a few snaps. And then in week 7, he was out. So I think we really haven't seen him much since the big incident. And I think people have you're kind of forgetting about him. And I think if he's going to be really low owned, Imari DiMercado is intriguing to me as somebody who could take back that just passing down role, or could, if he's playing well, just take on a bigger role. And we saw him, the one where he fumbled it. It was going to be a really long, nice touchdown. He's capable of those big plays. It's a great matchup with the Cowboys. So if he's going to be the lowest owned of the trio, I think they all kind of have a pretty good shot of getting some opportunities. I want to be well above the field on DiMercado. And by well above the field, I mean I'd like to have 20%. Honestly, I think is about where I'd like to be. I would have him in my first 5 lineups. I think I would have a shot on DiMercado. But I want to be clear, this isn't when we talked about I'm not forgetting the name of the tight end we played on the Dolphins, who was he's going to be out there. He's going to have opportunities. In the worst case scenario, he'll be out running routes, and it might not work out, but we're hoping for an expanded role. This is he hasn't really been playing. I think he's going to play, but I'm not as confident. But I think it's a good bet at really low ownership. I said his only issue, he's been the darling on all content shows today. I guess I only watched one, and they kind of talked about him in passing. Didn't seem like a ton of interest. So that's if all the shows are loving Imari DiMercado, then I don't think the shows move the market that much. But if you're talking about shows that get 10,000 views, then I guess it's possible they do. So maybe it's concerned, but I have not seen any other content really talking about him in a way that was super interested. So I guess I'd be surprised if he gets to 10% ownership. If he does, then I'm not going to like to play as much. I still think it's fine at 10% ownership, but obviously would not be quite as enthusiastic about it. All right. So that's my breakdown. I like all 3 of the running backs. I think you can play at least 2 of them together. I don't think I would play, if I were hand building, probably would not play 3 Arizona running backs together. It's just unlikely that there's a big enough pie that all 3 of them get there, even at these price tags with the opportunity cost. So probably don't want to play 3 of them in the same lineup, but I think 2 is totally fine. And any 2 would be totally fine with me of the Arizona backs. On the Cowboy side, we got the news, of course, that Jadon Blue is inactive, and now I'm going to refresh and see if it's updated. So with Jadon Blue inactive, it is Malik Davis season, or it could just be Javonte season. I mean, I say it's Malik Davis season. Malik Davis could still be nothing. He could just be not involved at all. Oh, and he is in here. So we've got they have updated for 12% market share for Malik Davis and a 1% receiving market share. So I think now I can run the Sims because we have this update. Maybe need to give Malik Davis some kind of ownership projection. Let me look around the industry what we could give him. It's also possible they have one in there and it's just not showing there. All right, RG has him at just 3% projected ownership. I think it takes time for the ownership to update, because like everybody has to update their projections, and then they have to look for all the other sites' updated projections to get to the correct ownership number. So I do think like ownership projection updates move slower than regular projection updates. But let me just see if anywhere has like kind of a good indicator of what the projected ownership be on Malik Davis. Okay, I'm going to give him some ownership before I run anything. Emerald says adjust ownership away from blue. I will move that, but I think it's actually going to be more for Malik Davis than it would be. Oh no, they have blue at 22%. Could I just move that directly to Malik Davis? I'm going to move him to, 18, 1% captain, and delete ownership from Jaden Blue. Wait. Okay. Now I think I can run the sims using these numbers. I'll have to potentially adjust later again, but I'm just going to try getting these going now. All right, so I'm going to use the shady portfolio optimizer. I think that's good enough. All right. So we'll start with Javonte, and then we can talk about whether Malik Davis is actually going to get some run. But Javonte, fairly strong role so far this year. I'll just bring up the full season for Javonte. So in 8 games played, 124 carries for Javonte, 31 targets, 54% route participation. I believe head coach Brian Schottenheimer said that he is Javonte Williams' biggest fan. That was some of the most recent coach speak on Javonte Williams, is that the head coach is Javonte Williams' biggest fan. He loves big, burly running backs. Man, a lot of like sort of sexual talk about Javonte Williams. Javonte last week talking about hitting him, penetrating with his girth. That they're all just using these terminologies for Javonte Williams. But awesome workload for Javonte. He's been doing a lot with the workload. And I don't think that's going to stop this week. Now, it is a tough matchup against Arizona. Again, we talked about this a little bit. Like, it's the 13th worst matchup or so for running backs in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed over the past 5 weeks. Let me find my article again. 11th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed over the past 5 weeks to running back. So not an ideal matchup for Javonte, but like the workload is strong enough. We've seen him do it in tough matchups before. Again, part of what you get with Javonte is you get the goal line touches that are just really valuable. And I do think it's more valuable on a team like Dallas, where you see CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens get to the end zone, and there's pass interference on them because nobody can guard them straight up. So they instead foul them, and then they get the ball at the 1 yard line, and Javonte runs it in. Maybe I noticed this more than usual because I have the receivers and not the running back in best ball, but it's the most frustrating thing to watch. Happens all the time. These guys get held in the end zone, and then Javonte gets a 1 yard carry. But on top of that, he just, other than the goal line carries, he's actually looked really good. Like he's been playing well this year. He looks like a very strong running back. I don't know if I call him elite, but like he looks like a very capable NFL running back to me so far this year. Maybe he starts wearing down as the season goes on again at some point, but I'm not going to take his like weak game last week to be an indication that he is slowing down. So I think Javonte, a pretty strong play here. He's going to get a lot of ownership. I wanted to move away from it, but honestly, I don't think that it's getting out of hand. We've got Javonte projected for, where is it? Maybe I need to sort by salary. Why am I not finding him? Oh, there he is. Okay. Only 23% at RG. Like, I think he's a strong play at 23% projected ownership, if that's correct. At captain projected. Okay. And this is not working correctly. Let me see if I can. Okay, let me get back to run the Sims. They have him at 35% flex, so much higher flex projected ownership for Javante, and 6% captain ownership. Using those numbers, you can see in the Sims, I got to 43% flex, 24.5% captain. So a player that I, was looking for reasons to fade. Like I want to play the passing game. You can correlate with the passing game, like you can't really with the running game as much. But at the end of the day, like he's just a strong play. He gets a great workload, even in a tough matchup. He's gotten it done in tough matchups before. It's a strong offense. You want the running back who's getting a lot of work in a good offense, usually going to be a good thing. So I think Javante is probably not actually a player that I want to get away from too much if this is the kind of ownership he's getting. I don't think I want quite as much as I'm getting here. Like I think I'll probably find that I'm not enough of the receivers and I want to spread it out more. But I do think that he is a relatively strong play at 10,000, and a really strong captain play if you only get 6% captain ownership. Malik Davis, okay, you can see. So I changed the Malik Davis projected ownership to be 18%. So I believe, yeah. So these sims were run giving Malik Davis 18% projected ownership. Using that number, I did not get too much of Malik Davis, but I think he's a strong play. Like I think if he came in at 6% ownership, I think he would be a smash at 200. Like he's probably going to see some opportunities. Actually, I'll read off the coach speak on Malik Davis also. So this is, and it was more about Jade on Blue and being concerned about, but Malik Davis came up. So on the 29th of October, after that last game, Jadon Blue fumbled the ball, dealt with some pass protection issues. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer said on Jaden Blue's performance last week, he said Jaden was inconsistent in the game. He did some really good things, and there were some other things that he's got to do at a higher level. The fumble was a good hit. He needs to hold on to the ball. He can continue to emphasize playing more physical with and without the ball. I'm always going to go back to the consistency. You can't put the ball on the ground. You have to be on top of your blitz pickups. You have to do those things. I told him that he has the perfect guy to learn from in Javante Williams. Javante does everything right. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Malik Davis and what he's doing for us. We're all about creating competition. That would be another battle to watch. So that was the bit on Malik Davis was just I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Malik Davis and the job he's doing for us. We're all about creating competition. That would be another watch. Now we've only got like the two. I mean, we have Hunter Lipke there as well, but like Hunter Lipke, not really a running back. He's a fullback, or he's a fullback. He's not a halfback. What do you think? Is that too much, Zigza? You think 18% is too high? I looked at one other source that had it around that number. So maybe that is high. I wanna compare to where other places have the ownership on Malik Davis, but like you get a running back two at $200, not something you usually get on these showdown slates. So unclear to me how excited people will be to play Malik Davis. And yeah, this is not working. Let me look. Let's see. Let's go to the projections page. Will I find it there? Let's see. Nope. All right, or maybe it's over here more. Just want to see. I just want to be able to compare these ownership numbers. Okay, yeah, they don't have the ownership there. It's probably somewhere here, and I'm just not sure where to find projected ownership. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, though. I'll just look at my other sources to compare projected ownership. But yeah, if he comes in at 6% ownership, I would actually think Malik Davis is a really, really strong play. Still has that zero risk, but at $200, like he doesn't need to do that much, and you'll be able to fit in all of the studs. And yeah, there's some risk that he's going to be outscored by Elijah Higgins or some other, but like I would think it's pretty likely that he's going to have some opportunity as the running back too. No guarantee. You do see sometimes it'll be the starter gets 20 carries, the RB2 gets literally nothing. But as the quote indicates, they are trying to they are trying to create competition there. He's the only running back they have, and even if they don't intend to give him work, like He clearly is going to get the blowout run. They're not going to give that to Javonte, or I shouldn't say clearly. They could go to Lipke or something, but like he's by far the most likely, in my opinion, to get the blowout run. Also, if anything happened to Javonte, he should get the opportunity. I mean, he's the only other running back they have, so like he'll have the contingent upside if anything happened to Javonte. Obviously, they might just throw the ball and not run it at all, but I think more likely he is just a really strong play at 200 if he gets single digit ownership. Just kind of a slam dunk with some zero risk. Like there is some zero risk associated with it. But most likely, like how often do you see a backup running back at $200? And I think probably like more likely than not, he'll see a carry or two at the very least. And then could be more involved than that. And then on top of that has awesome contingent upside, and you're only paying $200 for it. So it doesn't really tank your lineup anyway. So I think this is kind of a outsized, what's the word I'm looking for? Disproportionate upside situation for Malik Davis if he does come in at single digit ownership. So yeah, I would think he's a fantastic play if we put him at single digit. And actually I'll rerun the Sims under that assumption in a bit. But yeah, I've seen elsewhere, somebody just posted in chat, one of my sources has him at around 15% projected ownership. Isn't he number 3 is one? Yes, we have Jaden Blue is out. For anybody who missed that news, Jaden Blue is out. So Malik Davis, and they had already talked about this week 1 in a great competition between Jaden Blue and Malik Davis. So I guess maybe we're seeing that competition in the game. Now, maybe they'll alternate games or something, or maybe just Malik Davis won out the competition in practice this week. But yeah, he is the running back 2 now, and he's only $200 and apparently not getting any ownership or not much. But as noted, other places have him higher. It's probably somewhere. I don't know. It's somewhere in between. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting 25%. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually does come in at, 6%. Really, really hard to know. But I think he's a player that I'm going to want to have Malik Davis in double digit ownership or exposure. And I'll just accept if he could be a 0. That's a risk I'm willing to take for a $200 running back. Hunter Lipke also does, I think, benefit. Like he's slightly more likely to get involved with, as there's only 2 running backs in front of him instead of 3. He's only 400. You can see here I got to 7.5% of Hunter Lipke. I think I got like 0.5% earlier. So he pops now a little bit more in the Sims. Looks like they gave him a bit more work. I think that's right. I think he, is just more likely to see extra opportunities without Jaden Blue there. So yeah, a lot of good running backs on this slate, which was not what I thought I was looking at coming into the slate. I think that's it. Let's move on to wide receivers. Actually, I'm going to look at one more source behind the scenes here, confidential, to see where. I want one other ownership source just because they are kind of all over the place right now, and not that I think anywhere really knows, but I think maybe like the ownership projection will continue to update and get better over time is sort of my expectation. Let's see. Ownership for. Give me a second here. For Malik Davis. Okay. Another place lower than 15, higher than 5. So probably that's about what I would expect. I think. I don't know. It's tough. All right. We'll talk wide receivers. I'll make my lineups later, and I would like to get to some Malik Davis if the field's not going to be there in a huge number. Because I think like he's a better play than Jaden Blue would have been, because Jaden Blue was going to be one of like there was that potential competitive angle, and Jaden Blue was $1,200 more expensive. So yeah, give me the guy who's only $200 and you remove the backup competition there. To me, is a better play than Jaden Blue would have been if Jaden Blue were active. All right, wide receivers. Starting with the, I guess we'll start with the Dallas side. And it is a slight negative matchup. No, it's a pretty bad matchup. Sorry, for 4 wide receivers in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. It has been a very bad matchup for receivers against Arizona over the past 5 weeks. Again, I'm not super concerned about that for the Cowboys. They've just, I think this offense is good enough that they can get it done against anybody. I'm going to pull up a wide receiver coverage matchup just to have not looked at this yet, actually, the wide receiver coverage matchup. So I'm curious how it looks for the Cowboys. Yeah, it's a slight positive for George Pickens, slight negative for CeeDee Lamb. I don't think I'm super concerned with the coverage scheme stuff. And then as far as the wide receiver cornerback matchup report, we've got Will Johnson on CeeDee Lamb. Somebody asked earlier if that concerns me. I don't think so. Like CeeDee Lamb is just good enough that I'm not going to be concerned about any specific matchup unless it is like Pat Surtain or something. Anyway, so we have CeeDee Lamb coming in at 39% flex ownership, 14% captain ownership. That's about what I got. I got 31% flex, 24% captain. That looks great to me. I'm overweight at captain, underweight at flex. Happily stay where I am with CeeDee Lamb there. George Pickens, you get a $2,000 discount on CeeDee Lamb. He's 8,800 projected for 33% flex, 9% captain. I got to 23% flex and 3% captain. Now we want to look at, so we have, and actually let me pull up the route share report. So we have basically two different sets of 2-game samples with CeeDee Lamb playing full time. So weeks 1 and 2, and then weeks 7 and 8. So I'm going to pull those up. I have not looked yet at if there is any kind of difference, but I do want to consider the possibility that George Pickens has earned himself a bigger role. 7 and 8. So weeks 1 and 2. CeeDee Lamb, 24 targets. Jake Ferguson, 18. George Pickens, 12. So Pickens, 6 targets per game in weeks 1 and 2. CeeDee Lamb, 12 targets per game in those games, and Jake Ferguson, 9. In the most recent 2 games, much more even. But it's really, so CeeDee Lamb has come down to 8.5 targets per game over the past 2. George Pickens up to 7.5, and Jake Ferguson down to just 4. So I don't know. Like this is obviously really, really small sample size stuff. It would sort of make sense if Pickens like has, generated more of a rapport with Dak Prescott since he's been on the team longer and played really well with CeeDee Lamb out. So it would kind of make sense if he has earned himself a bigger role than we were seeing earlier in the season. But again, that's an extra 3 targets over the course of 2 games from the first sample to the most recent sample. CeeDee Lamb still leading the team in targets in that span. Jake Ferguson actually the biggest hit, down to just 8 targets over the past 2 weeks from 18 over that first 2-game sample. And he played really well with CeeDee Lamb out also. Just want to look at that. I don't know that we can necessarily take anything away from that, but it is something that you can at least consider, that there's a possibility that George Pickens has earned a bigger role and it's eating into Jake Ferguson or maybe even CeeDee Lamb to some extent. All right. Yes, please do like the video if you haven't already done so. Would very much appreciate it. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciated. So George Pickens, I brought that up because I'm like, Pickens' price tag is pretty nice. He is getting a lot of ownership, 42% projected ownership. I wouldn't mind getting to more than this 2.5% at captain in particular on George Pickens, because I think he like has big potential. The splash plays, he can put up 110 and a touchdown and on 8 receptions and just be like the slate breaking receiver if he gets the touchdowns instead of CeeDee Lamb. So I think I'd like to be over this number, but I guess he's been projected for 9%, so that's kind of a hefty projected ownership on George Pickens, which is why I'm not getting as much. I don't know. I wouldn't mind getting a bit more than I'm getting right now, but I'm happy with the amount I'm getting to of Lamb. Then beyond those 2, you have Kevontae Turpin. He's 2,000, projected for 14% flex ownership. At that ownership number, I got to 28% in the flex, 4% at captain. Turpin, strong enough role in the games with CeeDee Lamb. Again, over the first couple games, he had 6 targets. The most recent couple games, another 6 targets on 43% route participation over the past 2 games. He also, over the first 2, had, I believe, 4 carries in those games. He hasn't had those since he came back from his foot injury. But as noted, somebody noted it in chat, with Jaden Blue out, it might be just more likely that we get some carries for Kevontae Turpin. Like he's another one that could benefit from like them finding unique ways to run the ball. So I do think like Turpin probably does benefit, at least from like a range of outcome standpoint. Like it might not actually come to fruition, but it's likelier now, I think, that Turpin does get a carry or 2 with Jaden Blue out. So any already somewhat involved in the passing game. So yeah, 14% projected ownership. I think Turpin is a fairly strong play at 2,000. Ryan Flournoy, 2,800, projected for 4% flex ownership. I got to 10.4%. That's about where I'd like to be on Ryan Flournoy. Again, looking at the most recent 2 games with CeeDee Lamb back, Flournoy 2 targets on 21.3% route participation, but even better than that. So that's looked good. 2 targets, 21.3 is fine. But I think even more promising is I think all of that came in the most recent game. So it was like he moved from, you can see the route participation, 9% in week 7 up to 31% in week 8. In week 8 for Ryan Flournoy, 2 targets on 31% route participation. And now I don't want to, read too much into this jump, because you see players just jump up and down, and the route participation moves all over the place for a lot of players. But he did play well with CeeDee Lamb out. I think it's possible that Flournoy has earned himself a bigger role. And that was sort of at the expense of Jalen Tolbert. Now maybe it just flips back and it's Jalen Tolbert getting more of the work than Flournoy this week. But as Adam mentioned earlier, he looked into it. It was actually Flournoy getting more of the work early in the game than Jalen Tolbert. So it's not like he was getting it in garbage time. It was like Flournoy was early in the game getting involved for the Cowboys. So I kind of like Flournoy here at 2,800 and just 4% ownership. I think this is about where I'd like to be, though. Like I'm more than double the field here. That looks great to me on Flournoy. And then I'm not getting to any Tolbert. I think I'm okay with that. He definitely has the ability to score a touchdown, make a big play, and make me regret not playing him. But it's with so many strong value options on the slate, I think I'm probably going to take that risk with Jalen Tolbert. And if I don't get to any, I'm just going to accept that, I think. On the other side, we have a fantastic matchup. So kind of a tough matchup for Dallas receivers, fantastic matchup for Arizona receivers. Looking in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to receivers, it is the 4th best matchup for Cardinals receivers against the Cowboys. Marvin Harrison Jr., 8,400 projected for 25% flex ownership, 5% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 36% flex, 6% captain of Marvin Harrison. So I'm over the field in both. I'm happy with that. Even as somebody who is not like the biggest Marvin Harrison Jr. fan, just the price tag here is down to 8,400. The matchup is great. I think he looks like a fairly strong, like kind of mid-level play in this matchup. I think this could be one that he exploits. Triquise Bridges, interesting, on Marvin Harrison. Deron Bland is on Michael Wilson, and then Khair Elam on Zay Jones. In terms of the wide receiver coverage matrix, let me look. Interesting. Grades out as a great matchup for Zay Jones against the zone heavy defense. Strong matchup for Michael Wilson. Not as great for MHJ and Trey McBride. But not enough of this is going to sway me. Other than, that's a really strong coverage grade for Zay Jones. That might actually be notable on Zay Jones. But yeah, I like Harrison. Michael Wilson, I honestly a little bit surprised I'm not getting more of Michael Wilson. He's 3,200 projected for 21% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership. I'm about half the field, getting to 11% in the flex of Michael Wilson. Now, if we look at the route participation report. Let's take a look. So it was weeks 5 and 7 is our most recent sample size. With Marvin Harrison playing the full game. So maybe I'll pull that up. What does it look like weeks 5 and 7? Because week 6, Marvin Harrison left early. So in those 2 games, Michael Wilson, 70% route participation, 8 targets, like pretty good for his price tag. But I guess I'm okay with it because we have so many strong value options. I do think like he's one of the safer of the value options. You kind of know what you're getting out of Michael Wilson. You probably need a touchdown to pay it off, but he's not that unlikely to score a touchdown. I don't know. He seems fine. Then you have so Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Zay Jones. I kind of love 4,000 projected for 8% flex ownership. I'm only getting 3%. I think I'm actually going to boost Zay Jones a bit. I think he might have. So he has that fantastic matchup from a coverage standpoint. Also has the backup connection, which a lot of like Scott Barrett will tell me he thinks it's real. The backup quarterback with the backup receiver connection. I think it might actually be a real thing, and I think it might benefit Zay Jones. Now in these latest 2 games, and actually one of those was with Kyler, I guess. So let's look at just I think Kyler was in there in week 5. So let's take a look at 6 and 7. So this will include a game that does not have MHJ, but 9 targets on 65.6% route participation in those 2 games. Again, there the one game there where MHJ missed most of the game. So let's take a look at just week 7. All right, just 2 targets on 47.8% route participation. So I'm trying to talk myself into Zay Jones just from a matchup and narrative standpoint. He is getting 8% ownership, so it's not like that's nothing. But I do think I'm going to give him somewhat of a boost for the matchup and the backup quarterback connection, maybe being worth something. But I'm not going to go overboard there. All right, let's see. And then you have Greg Dortch, Xavier Weaver. Dortch is 2,400. Weaver is 200. In the most recent game, hang on, week 7, Dortch had 2 targets on just 13% route participation. Weaver 0 targets on 9% route participation. I think they're kind of just dart throw plays. If you want to get to some Dortch, just not running as many routes. So I think it's fine, but he's 2,400. He's not free. Not my favorite pay down option. If I get to a bit, I'm getting to 1% right now. So under the field, I don't think it's a huge priority for me, but like I think I'd like to have some in a 150 set of at least Dortch. Weaver, I think at 200 makes some sense as like the typical like backup tight end type player where it's just like you're hoping for one catch for 15 yards or a touchdown, whatever. I think he's fine. But yeah, I'd say like Marvin Harrison looks great. Michael Wilson, I'm not getting as much as I would like, but I'm probably not going to force it in there. I do think I'm going to increase the rates for Zay Jones for the potential that he's just going to be better with the backup quarterback and for the zone heavy matchup. And then Dortch and Weaver, not huge priorities for me. Tight end, Trey McBride, obviously is a focal point of this offense for the Cardinals. We can again pull up. And maybe we just use the full season for Trey McBride because I think he doesn't. I don't think MHJ actually does that much one way or the other for Trey McBride. I mean, you can see here the most recent game. Excuse me. 12 targets on 91% route participation for Trey McBride. In terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, it's actually one of the few that's not like a great matchup. But I'm not concerned about that at all for Trey McBride. Like they just should be able to score on the Cowboys, and Trey McBride is a focal point, and he's been much better. Actually, that's actually I shouldn't be looking at the full season. Let me look at just the past couple games with Jacoby Brissett. So I'm actually going to pull up. Here, let me just add week 7. No, sorry, they're buying week 8. So week 6 and 7 are the games with Jacoby Brissett. In the 2 games with Jacoby Brissett, 23 targets for Trey McBride on 89% route participation. He also can finally score touchdowns. Never scores touchdowns with Kyler Murray. He has 3 touchdowns in the 2 games that Jacoby Brissett has started. Clearly much better with Brissett than he is with Kyler Murray. So yeah, I think Trey McBride should be a focal point. Obviously, the field is getting there. 33% projected flex ownership, 13% captain. Using those numbers, I still got above the field at 44% flex, 15% captain. That looks great to me. Elijah Higgins getting more involved. He is only 1,000 projected for 5% flex ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 17% Elijah Higgins. And I'm totally happy with that. Again, if we look at the weekly route share report, Tip Ryman has been out the past 2 weeks. He's out again tonight. In those games, we've seen Elijah Higgins just basically take all of his work. So he's up to 36% route participation week 6, 43.5% week 7. Only a few targets in those games, but I guess we can look at just the last. Yeah, this is the last 2 games, 3 targets on 40% route participation for Elijah Higgins. Fairly strong role. So I think at 5% ownership, 1,000, he looks pretty good. Not getting any Josiah DeGuara. I'm not going to force any Josiah DeGuara. And then Jake Ferguson, he's 8,000, so fairly expensive for sort of a diminished role, at least recently. Which again, I don't want to read too much into what's happened the past couple games. But in the 2-game sample since CeeDee Lamb returned and Kevontae Turpin returned, the role for Jake Ferguson down to just 8 targets in those games on 73% route participation. Could spike and get a random 8 or 9 target game, but he's getting some ownership and he's 8,000. I am currently slightly below the field at 14% in the flex, none at captain. That seems fine to me. It is actually a really strong matchup for Jake Ferguson. In terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, it is the 6th best matchup for tight ends. So balancing all things out, I think I'm okay being slightly underweight to the field, but I don't want to like fully fade him. I think that's it as far as tight ends. All right, let's see here. Defenses, kickers. I'm getting to 18% Brandon Aubrey. He's getting 29% projected ownership. He obviously can break a showdown slate. I think I'm fine with 18%. 21% Chad Ryland at 19% projected ownership at 5,000. That all looks good to me. I don't want to get like much less than this. I think this is kind of like the floor of where I'd like to be with the kickers, but I'm comfortable with it. And then I am getting to actually more of the defenses. Interesting. Dallas at 3,800. 8% projected flex ownership. I got to 21%. Arizona, 3,400, 4% flex ownership. I got to 22%. Totally happy with that. They're both fairly inexpensive and low owned, and just football is a random sport where random things happen. So if they're going to be low owned, happy to get to them in some numbers. I think I'm going to refresh this before I run the Sims again, just in case there's been further updates with other, ownership changes. So I'm going to reset 44.5, 41.8. Excuse me. All right. So the ownership numbers have changed. So this is good to see. Looks like we've had some adjustments here. And I think even before I run this next set of Sims, I am going to maybe make some adjustments. Okay, so they have Malik Davis up to 10% projected flex ownership now. So these actually look more in line with industry and like closer to where maybe they should be. Let me just think if I want to adjust anything before I run the Sims, because I'm not going to have a ton of time. Maybe I give Zay just a little bit more work. I'm going to take it away from Xavier Weaver. Josiah DeGuara. Here, I'm going to smart adjust. Bring up Zay slightly. Let's see. I also want to get to more Imari DiMercato, I think. So I am going to, let's see. Going to bring up the rush rate slightly more, actually. I think I'm going to take away. Who's getting rush? Could take away a bit of. I'm going to take away some Jacoby Brissett and give it to DiMercato. I'm going to bring him down to a 12% rushing market share. DiMercato up to 10%. All right, I'm going to try that. And now, hopefully, at lower ownership, I'll get to some Malik Davis. It's actually higher than what they had it at, but lower than what I put in. All right, I'm going to run it. I'm going to run the Sims. I've got to normalize. Okay, that's not working right. Let's see. We were at 1. Okay. Oh, wait, shoot. I need to stop it, I think. All right, I can do this. I think that worked. Top heavy. All right, 241. Come on. I'm so close. This is killing me. I hate doing these damn sliders. There we go. All right. Good. Good to go. Yep. Good reminder. Jadon Blue is out. Important to know, Malik Davis becomes playable at 200 for the Cowboys as the RB2. You don't usually get an RB2 at $200. I'm not expecting a huge roll, but some roll at $200. And then on top of that, obviously has contingent upside. Is Malik Davis known to have good catching hands? I do not know much about Malik Davis. So let me see. Let me look him up. Malik Davis, according to NFL.com AI overview, Malik Davis is a professional running back for the Dallas Cowboys, known for his shifty style, vision, and one-cut ability. With a college background at the University of Florida, he was undrafted in 2022, but has shown he can be effective when given opportunities despite being in a rotational role with the Gators. Key traits include good acceleration and a knack for getting yards after initial contact, though his career rushing yards per attempt are modest due to his role and some slower recorded 40-yard dash time. Let's see. College stats average over 5.2 yards per carry in a 3-back system and recorded 10 touchdowns, including 2 receiving touchdowns. So they're not listing his pass catching ability as one of his traits. Weaknesses are speed and yards after contact. So kind of getting mixed signals there, but it says while he can break tackles, he's not a power back and can be stopped by a well-executed tackle. But couple receiving touchdowns in college. Turpin, yeah, I think Turpin as a potential getting more work is interesting. Yeah, that's something. I mean, I don't think Turpin's going to like suddenly get, 6 carries. I don't think. Maybe they surprise us, but like, I mean, I think it's Javonte Williams' backfield anyway. So like, none of them are going to get like huge work as long as Javonte is healthy and the game is competitive. It's probably going to be Javonte getting the vast majority of the work. But yeah, Turpin could benefit from an extra carry or two, which would mean like literally a carry or two, and then could be Malik Davis. I think it's more likely than not that we do see Malik Davis touch the ball at some point. Can you give me your core plays on FanDuel single entry, small field? Yes. Let me take a look. FanDuel real quickly. MVP. So we've got Dak, Brissett, Javonte, CeeDee Lamb all getting double-digit ownership. I think Zonovan Knight is a strong play at MVP if you want a contrarian MVP. Trey McBride looks like an awesome contrarian MVP at 6% projected ownership. Marvin Harrison, fairly inexpensive at 5.5% projected ownership. So I think, yeah, I'm probably not going much lower than that as far as MVP. It'd probably be Marvin Harrison or higher here. This would be kind of my MVP group. Dak, Brissett, Javonte, CeeDee, Zonovan, Pickens, McBride, Harrison. If you're, smaller field or large field, those are the ones that I want in any kind of number. You can obviously mix in some of these others in large field, but those would be kind of the priorities. Have flex. Dak and Brissett getting a lot of ownership. That makes sense. Kickers getting ownership. Sure. Pickens is only 10,200. Makes him a little bit more playable. Getting the same ownership projection as Dak at much lower price. But both like fairly low owned, honestly. Zonovan Knight at 7,400, just, easier to fit into lineups. I think he looks like a relatively strong play. Trey McBride at 9,600, really nice value there, and only getting 15% ownership. So Trey McBride, I think, is more of a target for me. And he's a target on both sites, but on FanDuel, like not that high priced and not getting much ownership looks awesome to me. Malik Davis, 1,600 on FanDuel, so still a really low price, getting 11% ownership. Again, I think relatively strong contrarian value play. Michael Wilson, 5,600. See here, Michael Carter at 7K is just like, that is too close in price to Zonovan Knight. Makes it tougher to get to. Single digit ownership is like sort of appealing, but still like close to double digits. So more of a priority on DraftKings and FanDuel, Michael Carter. Flournoy at 2,000, 9% looks like a really good value option. Again, Zay Jones, 5,000, 7% ownership looks good on FanDuel to me. Elijah Higgins, 2,600, 6% ownership looks good. And then DeMarcado, again, just 2% projected ownership on FanDuel, 4,000. Like he should get some run, I would think. So I think DeMarcado is a priority on both sites for me. Yeah, so I think you're obviously going to some number of like the studs. Again, those studs being the Marvin Harrison and up, this group. You want probably 3 of them somewhere in your lineup, and then mix around them. One of the kickers, maybe. And then one of like Malik Davis, Zay Jones. Who else? DeMarcado. The like sort of contrarian / value options. Get one of those guys in there, I would think, is how I would play it. Okay. Sims are run. Let me see if I need to make adjustments. All right. Wait, Sean. I think he only got one play. Rushing play, not workload. Said no Hunter for Jags because he played. Okay, I'm missing something. We thought that about DJM. Then he got a nice rushing workload. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, the carries matter. Like they can be carries at the 2-yard line. All right, top lineup here: Dak Prescott with CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Kavonte Turpin, also Brandon Aubrey, and then Bam Knight as the one bringback. That one leaves 400 on the table. Second lineup: Jacoby Brissett stacked with Elijah Higgins, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, along with Bam Knight. And Javonte Williams, the only bringback. That one's fun. Only leave 1,700 on the table. Makes a lot of sense as just a full-on Cardinals onslaught against a bad Dallas defense. Yeah, looks good. Third lineup is Dak with CeeDee, Pickens, Lipke, Javonte, and Michael Carter. Uses the full 50,000 salary. I got to get into my player exposures, make some adjustments possibly. So I'm getting to, in this run, 59% Dak, 19% captain. Looks great. About 50% total of Jacoby Brissett with 10% of captain. Cool. Running backs, I'm getting to 43 and 17 of Javonte, 39 and 8 of Bam, 26-1 of Michael Carter, 27 of DeMercado. I'm only getting 1% Malik Davis, who I really like. So that I need to adjust that pronto. Tight ends getting to a lot of McBride. Not as much Higgins as I was getting before. Don't love that, but okay with only 10%. Ferguson, I think. Getting a 17% Turpin, 18% Marvin Harrison with 3 at captain, 27-5 of Pickens. I think I'd like a little bit more Pickens and a little bit less CD potentially. I mean, I like all the CD. Only getting the 3% Zay Jones. All right, I need to make some adjustments here right quick. Oh, now I'm getting to a ton of Aubrey. Man, okay, things changed quite a bit in this last sim. All right, so let me make some adjustments here. All right, so I got to a lot more DeMercado, which I love. I want a bit more Zay than I'm getting right now. I'm just going to get rid of my Xavier Weaver and give that directly to Zay Jones. All right, let's see. Getting to less of Elijah Higgins now. All right, I think I can bring down the Aubrey projection slightly. I think I was getting to some Flournoy, some Turpin. Happy with that. I think I want just a bit more. Yeah, Pickens only doesn't have much of a market share. I think I'm going to lean into maybe his market share has come up a bit. I think I'm okay not getting to Turpin. I'm just going to give that directly to Pickens. Oh, he's getting a huge touchdown market share, though. Huh. Interesting. I'm worried that I'm going to get too much Pickens. Maybe I take, let's see. I'm going to unclick Smart Adjust, take away slight Pickens touchdown market share, bring that down to 30, and give that to Malik Davis. Gonna bring Malik Davis up to a 3% receiving market share. Okay. I think that'll work a bit. Get me close to where I want to be. Now I need to normalize. Gonna bring down the Brevin Span Ford. Okay. Cool. So we still have so Lipke and Davis getting about the same, but Davis getting more of the rushing market share. All right, that works. I think we're close to where I want to be now. Maybe a bit more of defenses. Let's bring up the sack rate just slightly. All right, I'm going to try that. Good. Oh, but before I do that, I need to actually just take those lineups to make sure I have something in. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Then we go back to settings. Okay, now I'm going to run it. So I'm going to put my lineups in, my temporary lineups. Give me a second. I always got to remember to make sure you get some kind of lineups in so you don't take zeros. Okay, good. If you want a real contrarian lineup, put in defensive captain with other defense in flex. Aaron says it will be unowned and you can play 4 of who you want. Yeah, potentially. Have not tried it. Neil, if Turpin runs back a kick for a touchdown, does he get points or does he and the DST get points? I'm pretty sure he still gets 6 points for a returned kick, along with the defense also getting points. McBride versus Brissett in the flex on DraftKings. It's going to depend on the rest of your lineup, but I think McBride probably my preference if I had to pick one in most lineups. Sims know that Dallas will try to have Aubrey break the kicking record. That's a good point. Did Cam Little just make the record? Do I think DeMarcado scores? No, I mean it's like he has a 5%, 10% chance to score maybe. So like no, I don't think so. But he could. I'd give him a 9% chance to score. Maybe 10. I'll give him a 10% chance to score. It's a nice matchup. Favorite captain taking into account ownership. I would say I think it's still CeeDee Lamb, but it's close. Yeah, I think it's probably CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, it is true flannel weather up here now. Yeah, here we go. It took me a while to realize that that's just a Dak thing. Though, like, I can't do a good impression, but like I've heard that so many times now, and I just like it took me a long time to realize that that's just Dak's like way of talking. Michael Carter or Brandon Aubrey, last guy. Again, going to depend on the rest of your lineup, but I'll go Michael Carter for the ownership discount. Wilson's going to project. I mean, Wilson projects better than Aubrey. Aubrey and Wilson. All right, sorry. Aubrey projects better than Carter is what I meant to say. I don't know if that's what I said. Aubrey Wilson or Davis/Harrison. I think Davis Harrison is more fun. Does that matter? Give me Davis Harrison. In a 5-1 onslaught toward Arizona, what single Cowboy are you taking? I think the first one I got there was Javonte, and I think that's pretty sharp. All right, top lineup, we got Dak Prescott at captain with CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Hunter Lipke, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter bring back. Uses the full salary cap, so that one's going to be duped. Second lineup, Jacoby Brissett with Bam Knight, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, Devontae Turpin, Dak Prescott. Third is George Pickens, Cardinals, CD, Dak, Javonte, Turpin. All right, let me take a look at my exposures, see if I need to do some filtering. Getting to a ton of Dak Prescott. Okay, now less of Jacoby Brissett. Okay, don't love how much I'm getting, but that's fine. A bit more George Pickens now. Okay, now I'm getting to 19% Pickens at captain. Still getting to a ton of CeeDee Lamb. Way lower on Marvin Harrison now, so that scares me a bit that I moved way down on Marvin. I actually think Marvin Harrison's a fairly strong play, so I don't love that. Turpin 21%, 8% Micah Wilson, up to 10% Zay Jones, 14% Ryan Flournoy, 4% Greg Dortch. Most of that looks good. I don't love how low I am on Marvin Harrison relative to Pickens. That's and I don't actually love. I'm only getting 8% Micah Wilson. Scares me a bit at running back. 32, about 50% total of Javonte. A lot of Bam, way over the field on Bam. 10% Malik Davis now, so I'm right with the field. If the field gets 10%, wouldn't have minded getting more there. 19% Amari DiMercado, so I'm well over the field there. 16% Hunter Lipke. Tight end, getting a 23%. Man, not getting much McBride. All right, I'm going to have to filter real quick, I think. All right. I think I'm getting to, not enough kickers. All right. I think I'm getting to too much now of, I mean, this might be okay, of Pickens maybe. Like I maybe overdid it there, giving him too much of the workload. So I'm going to download these and then try to filter a bit. Probably don't have time for the filter, but we'll try. All right. Getting those in. Going to advanced filters and wait. Okay, so a little bit less of Pickens, maybe slightly less of Dak. I don't want to throw like everything off is the tough part. Okay. So I think I'm going to go back to my graded lineups, include 3,000. And then I'm going to filter out max captain ownership of Dak, Pickens, and Lamb, Javante. Yeah, I'm not going to have time for this. And then in the flex of Pickens, all right. So I'm going to go max of 15% Dak captain, 20% CD captain, 15% Javante captain, and 12% Pickens captain. And then Pickens flex. Wait. I'm not seeing where that's popping up. Oh, cannot contain. I'm pressing the wrong button here. No, I do not want to do that. Max contain. Shoot. Pickens of 28% in the flex. We'll try that. We'll try with, no, I'll do 3,000 lineups. 2,000 lineups. This is obviously not gonna have time. We're gonna try it anyway. I'm not playing any Tolbert. He might bury me if he scores a touchdown. Certainly could happen. This is a good note from Finkel family. I'm not panicked. It's whatever. I accept that I'm not going to make as good a lineups when I'm doing shows up until lock. I'm hoping that you guys make the good lineups that I want to be making. And it seems that has happened quite a bit this year. It's been kind of fun seeing some big wins in the Discord. My last run of lineups is not perfect. Missing some players, like I'll be at risk of not having some players that I like, but I got closer to where I would like to be. I think I have some good lineups in there, so not super worried about it. The hard part is like I need to wait anyway because of inactives. So like tonight, we didn't know until basically right when I started the show that that we weren't going to have Jade Blue, and that kind of flipped the slate on its head to some extent. So like there's only so much you can really do anyway, unless I obviously start building right when I start the show, but I then wouldn't be able to do the show. So it is what it is. All right, we got to lock. Got some lineups in. Think I'm generally okay. Hopefully it's a Dak night because I have so much of Dak Prescott. Hopefully you guys got to some players that are going to go off tonight. Sorry, Alan did not answer your question, and it is lock now. I'll be back on Thursday for Thursday Night Football. Of course, me and Mathology will be joined by a special guest once again. I actually don't know if that show is tomorrow or Wednesday afternoon yet. I think it's Wednesday afternoon this week, but look out for that to do the Dog Bowl show. If you want to join the Flying Discord, free to join. Link is in the description of this video. But hopefully we win some money tonight. Good luck, everybody. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, all that. Thanks, everybody. Good luck, and I'll see you later.